Welcome to Inner Niña podcast, embracing your inner child while leading with strength. This is a space for Latina women and beyond who are ready to break generational cycles and lead from a place of wholeness. Together, we will reconnect with the little girl inside, the one who dreamed big, felt deeply, and longed to be seen, and honor her as we step in fully into our power. Join me, Maria Benitez, for heartfelt reflections and empowering conversations about identity, healing, culture, and leadership. Each episode invites you to embrace your inner niña while leading with authenticity, compassion, and courage. Welcome back to Inner Niña. Today we welcome a special guest and my dear hermana, Aixa Morales-Calleros. Aixa Morales-Calleros is a retired senior human resource executive and community leader with more than 37 years of experience in strategic human capital management, organizational transformation, leadership development, and equal employment opportunity. She currently serves as co-chair of Leadership Program and the Board Development Committee for MANA de San Diego. In this role, she partners with business, nonprofit, and community leaders to design and deliver programs that strengthen the leadership pipeline for Latinas and expand their representation in executive and board-level positions. Born in New York City, Aixa is the third child of Colombian immigrants and the first U.S.-born member of her family. She was raised in San Diego County and is deeply committed to creating opportunities for Latinas to achieve educational, professional, and personal success. Aixa is married to Colonel S. Jerry Calleros, a United States Marine Corps retired. They have 4 adult children, 3 grandchildren, and she resides in Escondido. Welcome, Anita. How are you today? Thank you for joining and being part of our Inner Niña community.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Thank you so much. So I love this beautiful lady that's here, and I'm glad that we were able to coordinate. She came back from this beautiful trip that she took, so I wanted to also share her latest excursion. We met actually when I joined the organization, Mana de San Diego. Mana de San Diego needed to create a committee because the chapter was growing, and they were the only chapter that have a staff. So one of the things that they wanted to do was improve their employee handbook, SOPs, policies. So Aixa, myself, and 2 other HR members became part of the HR committee. And one of the things we were able to do was revamp the employee handbook, put the leave of absence policies, improve SOPs. So we got a chance to work really close together during that time. And we've been close ever since. She is also a mentor that I look up to because she has the same HR background that I do, with the exception that she's a little bit more chingona than I am because she is up there. So anytime I had any questions, and into now, I reach out to her, and she's someone that I can always lean on for advice. I thank you, and it's an honor to have you here today. So tell us about who Aixa is, your background, family dynamics, and what are you working on?
Sure. So my parents immigrated to the United States in the 1960s, as many, in search of opportunity and a better life for themselves and for their children. And like many immigrant families, we lived with limited financial resources. And from an early age, I really did understand the stress of insecurity that came with not having enough financial resources and money. And when I was very young, my father left our family, and his departure created a deep wound that was one of the first many traumatic childhood experiences that I went through. Growing up, I endured physical abuse, sexual abuse, periods of hunger and instability. As a child, I developed the belief that my worth really was dependent on what I could do and how hard I could work and how much I could contribute. So at an early age, Maria, I really learned to hustle for my worth. My mother owned a small business, and all of us kids were expected to work. There was no distinction between childhood and responsibility. My siblings and I, we understood that if we didn't work, then the electricity could be turned off, or there might not be enough food on the table. While those circumstances were difficult, Maria, they also taught me discipline, resilience, the value of hard work. My mother taught me the example of hard work. Welfare, state assistance wasn't a long-term viable option or an example that was set for me. So I'm happy to say, though, that even through that, in my late adolescence, I began a relationship with God. I came to know Jesus Christ. as my Lord and Savior. And that introduced in me the idea that my life had purpose and that it was the beginning of my healing journey. And although I would later learn that my faith in Christ wasn't enough and that God did give me the strength to do hard things, but I also learned that true healing also required professional help. Just as with any kind of trauma or injury, God provides us doctors, God also provides us medical and professional help. And so I learned to do hard things, and those also included self-reflection and the willingness to really confront our painful truths. So at the same time, I was a straight A student. I was firmly college bound. My teachers, my counselors, they all believed in me, and they all believed that I had the academic ability and discipline to attend university. They saw tremendous potential in me, and many of them encouraged me to pursue higher education. When I was in school, I won a state award. Anyway, so I was on the right path. However, like many Latinas in the 1980s, life took a different path, and I unexpectedly became pregnant. And in those times, Latinas had the highest high school dropout rates in the country. We didn't have programs like Mana de San Diego Hermanitas program. And I want to tell you that those high school dropout rates continued through the 90s and didn't change honestly until the late 2000s. So I have to tell you that I was ashamed because of my pregnancy. My teachers were disappointed in me. My counselors were disappointed in me. My family was disappointed in me. And honestly, I was disappointed in myself. And looking back, I can see that I was still carrying a tremendous amount of unresolved childhood trauma because I had not yet healed. I often brought my pain into relationships. One of the most important lessons that I've learned is that hurt people hurt people. I caused significant pain to other people, to people that I loved, to people that I still love, whether it was my children, my coworkers, spouse, employees, and friends. It was because I was operating from a place of fear, huge shame, and emotional woundedness. Because throughout my life, though, I worked consistently. And work became a place where I thrived, Maria. Work became a place where I felt competent, I felt valued, I felt in control. Because when you're a child and you don't have control, you seek to find control. And work was something I could control. Kind of like that same survival instinct that helped me endure my childhood became the foundation for my professional success. It became my superpower. I developed an extraordinary work ethic. And I built, as you mentioned, a rewarding career in human resources. I started from the very bottom doing staffing and placement, and I ultimately retired after 37 years of federal service. And the last job I had right before I retired, I was the director of operations for the Department of Navy's Human Resources Operations Centers. And that organization provides placement and compensation services for about over 280,000 civilian employees of the Navy and the Marine Corps. And it's a worldwide portfolio. In that role, I provided executive leadership for large-scale HR operations, for organizational transformation, policy development and implementation, service delivery improvements across our globally dispersed workforce. Since the late 1980s and 90s, I held progressively responsible positions spanning, like we talked about, major human resources disciplines, including staffing and placement, labor and employee relations, benefits, recruitment, classification, compensation, and equal employment opportunity. My HR analyst, HR expertise specialist provided me the opportunity to provide management representational work. So I was able to successfully handle complex employment matters and represent management's interests in litigation before third-party agencies. I had wonderful sponsors and wonderful mentors throughout my career. Nobody does well without the reliance on mentors and sponsors and people who will give you those tough assignments, push you to that next level. And they did. I advanced through multiple leadership roles as a lead, an individual performer, then a lead, then a supervisor, a manager, a department head, a director. And then I moved into the director of the Navy Region Southwest Regional HR Director. I had 9 HR offices under me, supporting over 150 Navy organizations with a workforce of about 27,000 civilian employees. Yeah, so over the course of my career, I received many awards, but I do want to just mention 2 that I'm especially proud of. The first came when I was in my late 20s, so it must have been about the mid 1990s. I spearheaded the development and implementation of the Navy's first alternative dispute resolution program. We started in the San Diego area by sharing Navy employees that were skilled in alternative dispute resolution. And that initiative improved our resolution rates for discrimination complaints as well as other employee kind of grievances by 80%. So that was a significant cost savings throughout our Navy organizations in San Diego, and it became the catalyst and the foundation for the Navy-wide and Marine Corps-wide ADR program that's still in place 30 years later. And I think that recognition was very important to me because I learned at an early age in my 20s. It taught me that honestly, in order for HR practitioners to earn value to leaders, is that our value, it's predicated on providing leaders with solutions to the problems that impact the bottom line, right? And so I think it was that taught me it's more than just having the expertise in your functional area, but understanding what the organizations need and how we can formulate programs and systems to help improve their needs. The second award came later, right a few years before I retired. I received the Navy's prestigious Navy HR and EO and Award for Excellence in Leadership. I was selected from amongst 1,500 professionals amongst the Navy and Marine Corps EEO and HR community. And the recognition was particularly meaningful for me because it came from my peers. So Maria, you as an HR professional, though, know that it's something extremely different to be recognized by professionals who understand the complexity of the work, the standards of excellence required. And that honor has been both deeply meaningful and profoundly humbling to me because it came from my colleagues. It came from those that are people that are embedded in the work. So very meaningful. But I have to say that from the outside, my life appeared to be extremely successful. I was thriving at work, top performer, being recognized. But internally, I was still driven by my belief that I had to prove my worth and that I had to hustle for my worthiness and I had to do it through achieving. My work, honestly, Maria, became my addiction. Productivity, it became my identity. And I attracted in my relationships people who were similarly focused on work and performance and accomplishments. And that is true for my husband. It wasn't until my late 30s and early that I finally sought the professional help to address my childhood trauma that I had been carrying for so many years and had been ashamed of and had been hiding and very few people knew about. That decision changed the course of my life. Through professional counseling and my continued faith in Christ and the work of profound authors like Brené Brown, I began to really understand how shame had shaped my thoughts, my behaviors, and my relationships. I really began to see that shame tells us we are not enough, we have to work harder, we have to achieve more, and we have to appear to be successful. And only then will we have our worthiness and will we find love and acceptance. But Maria, as you know, shame's a prison. Shame is something that constrains you, that stops you from living authentically, from sharing your story. And that healing really begins when we understand that our value is inherent. It's not dependent on our accomplishments. And another part of my critical journey was finding forgiveness to really, I was in my early and mid is when I started really finding forgiveness. And forgiveness, Maria, forgiveness is tricky. Forgiveness is hard but as you know, I can do hard things. Forgiveness really is looking at forgiving yourself. It's not necessarily about forgiving or excusing the harmful behavior that you did or the harmful behavior that others did or pretending that painful experience didn't happen, that you didn't cause pain to others. But forgiveness is about releasing that hold that those experiences and those individuals have over your life. So I learned to forgive myself from the pain that I caused, from the pain I caused others, and to forgive those that hurt me. I learned to forgive my parents for the ways that they showed up in my life, that they failed to protect me. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes forgiveness includes creating healthy boundaries and choosing distance. But forgiveness frees you from carrying bitterness, resentment, and anger. It allows you to move forward and to seek joy. So that's a little bit about my background.
Was great. Well, I'm loving the things that you're sharing because I know this wonderful lady and I think she's the greatest, but I didn't know a lot of the stuff she's sharing. First and foremost, I want to congratulations. Those are great achievements and accolades. We need to share this because it's part of what we're mentoring the girls, right? And we don't always highlight a lot of stuff that we do well, but we serve as role models for the next generation. So it's important for them to see that you were able to achieve something that, as an HR professional, I can assure you, is not easy. So the fact that you were recognized by your peers says a lot. But I want to come back to that first. I want to go back to something that's also part of our healing journey. And I'm glad that you're being vulnerable and sharing this stuff with us, right? Because we go through trauma as children. And sometimes, and I say that a lot in our episodes, in our culture, and I know you're Colombian, but in a Latino culture, we're expected to stay quiet and not say anything. And kind of that weighs heavy on us, where it manifests the guilt of us, the shame that we're carrying for things that happen to us as children that we have no control over. Kind of weighs us heavy, which kind of creates different patterns, toxic patterns that eventually manifest themselves in our future relationships and how we on how we show up, right? So
Yes.
I'm glad that you're mentioning, and you also mentioned that you seek therapy. We both
Yes.
are believing in God. God is part of who we are, but I'm glad that you're acknowledging that some of that we also need to seek help.
Yes.
Because you went through that, and it's important for us to address, did you go back and speak to the parties that created those harmful or childhood trauma? Were you able to speak to them? And the example I have to give is I was able to have some uncomfortable conversations with my mom because I went through some stuff that she should have protected us from. And I'm able to, she knows a lot of that stuff because I'm having those conversations. And it was hard at first. It was hard for her to hear it. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to admit it. And it was hard for me to tell her, but it was important for me to lay it all out. And we are having those conversations, right? It took years for us to have those conversations. Did you get a chance to have those conversations where, as an adult, we now have the guts to say, hey, you did that to me. I still remember, and it wasn't okay.
It wasn't
Or
okay.
you did?
Yes.
How did that
Yes,
go?
I did. I did have the conversation with my mother, and I also learned that you gotta love people where they are, and hurt people hurt people. And so while I did have the conversation with my mom, and I had hope that there would be a level of recognition, I realized that she was incapable of doing that. She did the best she could with what she brought to the table. And so my forgiveness of my mother and of my parents and really of everybody is not predicated on their ability to acknowledge the pain that they caused. So my forgiveness frees me, and it's always easier to move forward and to have a better and more intimate relationship when there's acknowledgement on the other side. But I recognize that my relationship with my mother was going to be as good as it gets, given her inability to have self-reflection. She didn't do any of the work I did. She's never had professional counseling. She didn't understand childhood trauma. She brought her own hurts, her own background, her own history, and how she parented my siblings and I. And again, because I'm a faith person, Christ doesn't say forgive because the people are worthy of forgiveness. That's not what we're called to do, right? And so I've understood that. And yet, still, my journey with my mother was I was blessed to be able to have my mother in my home and take care of her in her last days as she was through hospice and passed on. And I was still able to love her, to hold her, to caress her, to bathe her, to change her, all of those things. Because again, I did not require her acknowledgement, her taking of responsibility in the pieces that she owned. I was hopeful that it would happen, but again, I didn't need it in order to forgive her because I had done my own work and understood that she did the best she could based on where she came from.
I'm glad that you said that because when I had the conversation, I've had the conversations with my mom. Now I tell the people that she's my number one fan because she's the first one to hit like on all my posts,
Triggers.
and
Yeah.
she translates and she knows what we're doing. But she actually was acknowledging because I was to acknowledge her mom. I said, I know you did the best you could, but you also were traumatized, and so it goes back to what this channel is about: breaking generational cycles because she had her own aha moment and she realized, you know what? I realized I was. I said, you hadn't, there's no way that you could have changed that pattern because you lived it. My grandma lived it. I said, and I was having a conversation with her just yesterday. And I was driving and I called her and I said, do you realize that I broke that generational cycle with the women in my family? And she says like, yes. And it's funny what she says is like, my stepdad would tell her, he goes, la niña va a ser algo en su vida, the me, meaning me, that little girl is gonna do something with her life. And I say, I wish I would have heard that when I was little. I said, because none of you guys said that to me. I was always the black sheep. I was always a no good for nothing. And I reminded her, I said, I still remember that. But it's funny how you guys are now saying that you saw that in me when I was little. I didn't hear it. We have a little chuckle on that, because we're in the heal stage, right? She acknowledges, yeah, I realized I didn't do this, but that was done to me. But she was actually able to recognize. And
Wonderful.
those are the
What a
things that,
blessing for you, Maria, that you have that.
yeah,
It does help in raising the relationship to a more intimate level, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So and I've had the conversation with both my biological parents because I had childhood abandonment issues by my biological father, and we had several conversations throughout when we reconnected as adult. And so when I tell people like I'm at peace because I'm able to let everything out in real time with my parents, they're hurt, and that was part of my healing. So one of the things I like to share in this episode that sometimes it's important for us to speak. Therapy is not just talking to a stranger. Therapy is also having that one-on-one conversation. Allow me my time for me to share with you how I felt, how I feel, and be heard. So you understand as my parent that I went through that and acknowledge my mom actually came to a point where she got on her knees and apologized.
That's wonderful.
And then to me it's like that really helped, right? Because I
You bet.
went we had a disconnect for a while because I was so hurt and she wasn't validating my hurt, right? It was all in my head until she was able to acknowledge it and we were able to go from there. And it's important for me to share that because part of whoever's listening doesn't realize that if I bring it up, it's just gonna open a can of worms. It's important to talk about it. It's important to
It
say,
is,
hey,
but there's also the understanding that forgiveness is a gift. It is
yeah,
not earned.
yeah.
It
And
is a gift.
forgiveness is for your own, right? It doesn't
And it's
mean
for
that,
yourself primarily.
yeah, it's like I've learned to forgive because I have God and I'm like, I'm forgiving you. What you have to do, that's between you and God, right? I'm forgiving you because I want my peace. Now, like you mentioned, set boundaries.
Yes.
There's family members I choose not to be around because they're toxic. And so my circle is small intentionally because sometimes we're told the bigger the family you have to put up with la tía tóxica, el tío de esto. And no, you don't. You don't have to put up with it. My kids know, like, if you're not comfortable with that family member, you don't have to be around that family member. I set boundaries, walls so high for my protection, the protection of my kids, because I lived with all that growing up and nobody put any stop to it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, and that it's important to give yourself the permission to say, I don't want those people in my life. And I don't care if they're blood, right? They're not welcome in this space, especially
Well,
because
and
you
I
have
think you see
kids.
that a lot nowadays with the younger generation where they end their relationship with their parents But we come from a culture that's not acceptable within our culture. And I do believe that I wanted to have a good and healthy relationship with my mother. So I was willing to do the work. And so that means that even though my mother may not have been worthy of my love or worthy of me taking care of her while she was dying, it didn't matter because I loved her. And I would do it for her even if she's not worthy. Because again, just like forgiveness is a gift, love is a gift. Love is not conditional on your behavior. Now, I mean, there's a difference if my mom, was in certain areas totally unacceptable. But I mean, the issues that I had with my mother, I was able to forgive her and move forward and still maintain a quasi healthy enough, as good as it gets, relationship. But that's an individual decision. I do say to the younger generation, though, don't give up on your parents so easy. Give them grace, give them mercy, and start thinking about what is their journey that has put them in a position that they reacted the way they reacted or behaved the way they behaved. Because at the end of the day, if we can't find a way to forgive and move forward, then there'll be very few people in our life. And then that holds true even in the professional lives, because I've had employees and I've seen other managers that have difficulties with employees and they're not able to work through that conflict to resolution and to have a healthy, productive work relationship afterwards. So it's all a matter of choices and who do you want to do the work with and on. But it
Right.
always
It's
starts with
important.
you. It always starts with
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Which brings back to this question, right? Part of what we're learning from once we're able to sympathize and empathize with our parents, it also gives us the tools as mothers on what to do and not to do. So, from your experience in that relationship that you had with your mother, and I know this because I've seen one of your beautiful daughters. I've only got to see one, which is a dead ringer to her, by the way. She looks just like you. What did that experience teach you to do differently with your kids, and how are those relationships?
Well, I mean, I think that the sad part for me is I didn't get professional help until I was really in my late 30s, early 40s. And so my children, they were grown because I had them. They were already in college by the time I started working on myself. So my ability to step forward and take full responsibility for some of the ways that I parented, me saying sorry to my children and pointing to specific behaviors didn't come till they were in their 20s. And I feel badly for that, but I'm thankful that I did it, right? And so my relationship with my children it's a good relationship. You learn as a parent that you raise them for a season. You have your children for a season in your life. They'll always be your kids, but the reality is that they're God's. They belong to God, and God gives them to us for a season to raise. And I didn't do that good of a job, but I was a kid raising kids, right? And again, I had my own issues, right? So when in my 20s, I was I was done having my kids by the time I was 25 years old. So you can do the math. But anyway, so my relationship with my children is much better. And I actually have to say that my daughter, who has 3 children, she's a wonderful mother. And she doesn't parent the way I parent, which is probably a good thing. I think my relationship with my children is outstanding. Because I don't treat them so much like kids anymore, I try my best to remember that they're adults and all adults have issues, and you need to give space for people to not be perfect. Like I may blow it, they blow it. We work through it because we want to have an intimate relationship. We can make a choice. We'll just give each other grace and have a superficial relationship, or we do the work, get through that to have an intimate relationship. So we have chosen to do the work, get through it to have an intimate relationship. So
I
yeah,
love
so
that. I
all
love that.
good.
Have you had conversations with, especially the daughter that has the 3 kids? Have you had that one-on-one conversation where maybe has brought to you what she wish you had done differently? Have you had those conversations
No, I
yet?
really haven't had to because her younger sister is speaks loud enough for all 3. So I really haven't had to specifically do it. But I think the difference with her is she's an RN, so she's been trained, and part of it is mental health. And she knew about, obviously, because I was so young when I had her, when she was a teenager, she knew that her mom was a pregnant teen. And so when she was in her 20s getting her nursing education, she understood childhood trauma. She also knew, because I was extremely protective so they wouldn't be physically and sexually abused. I was like a pit bull when it came to my kids. She understood that why I was like that. And so she gave me grace and mercy. So there wasn't a need to too much talk about that. But the middle one was very good about pointing out the areas that I needed to work on. she's definitely my reality check. And so which is good because again, people have being able to speak their truth to their parent, same thing as, voice to power. That takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to speak up to your parent and to tell them the way it is from your perspective, even though you know that they're not going to agree. So I always have to say, Tabitha is the loud voice in my dark, dark world. She's the bright light in my dark, dark world because she will point out the things that I need to work on, which I'm so grateful for her for that.
That's wonderful. Now, so how does that go? How does that make you feel when she points out
I think
your
like
not?
all of us, I mean, initially it's a sting. It's initially, but I've done enough work that I then go to my older daughter and she then balances it. Like, do you think it's because of this? Do you think it's because of that? Or, obviously you talk to therapy. You got really good friends in your life, circle of hermanas, circle of, your BFFs that they also can put some reality to it. And then because what we know is if you're tired, if you're hungry, you're not always going to be the best version of yourself. And you fall back to those behaviors. So even though you may have healed, you'll still have a tendency to go back to shame and blame and all of the things that hold us back. So, and especially the people that you love have the highest ability to cause you pain because you're the most vulnerable with them, right? And so you have to understand that even though it might sting in the moment, they love you and they're bringing it to you out of love. And even though those things are true, they still love you. And so it's the self-talk that helps us to move through it on to the other side. So sometimes that needs a little bit of time, a little bit of distance, and then you can take a step back and know that the relationship will always be better when your adult children and your friends can speak truth to you with a desire to make it better. Because there are going to be people that will tell you every bad thing you ever did, but their motivation is not to improve and to build intimacy. It's to hurt you, right? And so you have to decide when you're receiving that how it's intended. And I'm truly not interested in getting feedback from people that I go back to like Brene Brown. We go back to her metaphor, which was about people in the cheap seats. They'll throw rocks at you all the time, but let's see them get in the ring. Let's see them. Come on, let's rumble. So don't just come and throw up all over me. You're going to throw up on me? Let's go at it. Let's work through it to get to the other side, which is intimacy, love, caring. So you got to be mindful about those individuals in your life that are very happy to sit in the cheap seats and throw rocks at you, but are not interested in getting in the ring with you and really rumbling to move to the other side of intimacy and growth.
I'm glad that you're sharing that because I've had several conversations with some of my hermanas, you included. I have 2 adult kids, and sometimes it's hard for us to get an advice from someone that we know because we want to pretend everything's perfect in our world, right? In the outside, oh, everything's great. But, the fact that you're sharing the struggles you have with your kids, we all have them,
All of us.
but we don't always like to share it. So when I have conversations with my hermanas, I remember a couple of years ago, we were at an event in Hermana Norma, from our chapter. I
Yes.
was having a conversation about something I was struggling with my kids, and she told me, "You'll be fine." I went through that with my daughters, and there's this face. So she kind of gave me hope because at that moment, I'm like, my daughter was not talking to me because, we don't always see eye to eye. The mother-daughter dynamic, I think, is always like pull and push kind of thing.
Yes.
And I know I had it with my mom, and I didn't want that with my daughter, but I was experiencing something. I still continue to have that because we're like
It's
almost
actually
similar in this.
healthy. Quite frankly, it's actually healthy. I think the most unhealthy mother dynamic relationship is where the mother continues to be mothering over the child and the child doesn't stand up to be una mujer independiente que tiene voz, que puede, again, speak truth to power. So again, I think it's healthy when we have those kinds of relationships with our mothers where we can speak up to them, where they're open to listen and they're willing to take because this is what's going to build a relationship. Take responsibility for the piece that you own, always. And even if you don't see that it's wrong, if it hurt them in any way, then take responsibility. It's almost like, when you're walking down the street and you're looking at your phone and you bump into somebody, you hurt them. And what do you say?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Did you mean to hurt them? No, you didn't mean to hurt them, but you still caused pain. The thing is, you know that you caused the pain because you noticed that you hurt them. Many times we are going along our life, we hurt people and we don't know it. And Maya Angelou says we cannot do better until we know better. And so that's why I want the women in my life, the men in my life, the people that I love in my life, and who want an intimate relationship with me, be willing to tell me when I've missed the mark, when I've inadvertently hurt them, and to give me the benefit of noble intentions. My intentions might have been noble. They might have been intended to, but give me the grace to think that I care enough about you I'm not trying to hurt you, it was noble in my intention, but your intentions don't change the outcome, which is you hurt that person. So again, I say take full responsibility, even though sometimes it's like, well, I don't want to say sorry. You need to check your ego. If you can't pick up the mirror and acknowledge when you blew it, you got some work ahead of you. You need to be going to therapy every week, is my
I
philosophy.
love that you say that because, and I think you and I are aligned with that. I look for
HR,
people that, yeah, I think that's where we are. But I like the people that I want close to me are like the ones that are gonna be a mirror to me to the point where like, hey, you're fucking up.
yes,
You're being a you know what, and call me on it because if I am, I don't mind hearing that because I know that it's coming from a good intention rather than
yes,
me thinking you're a really good friend and then the around the circle I heard, well, she said this about you. That to me is not something, and that's what I'm used to, right? And so when I have someone that say, hey, that's not right what you're saying, or that's not right what you did, call me on it. Let me reflect on it, and I will
yes.
value
Give me an
that relationship.
opportunity to do some
Yes.
changes. Give me a chance to fix things.
Yeah, because I'm gonna come back, you know what? You're right. I was being an ass. I'm sorry. And I
Yes,
always tell people, I say, look, I want a real friend that says, hey, you have a booger on your nose. Don't make
yes,
me walk around, and not, that's the type of friend I am. I'm like, I'll be the one to say, blow your nose or something. Those are authentic people, right? And then the same thing I have with my kids is like, look, I've had conversations, they're both adults. I try my best. I was so focused on not repeating my mom's patterns. And I told my kids that I know I messed up in other things. And that's not by intention. It was not the intent. My intent was to be an IQ because of what we went through as trauma. I was super protective of them.
yes,
One of the arguments with me is like, you never let us go spend the night at our friends and you never let us go. If I didn't
yes,
know them, you weren't going anywhere.
right?
And that's because my fear of what I went through, I
Yes,
was overly
because you
protective
love
is
them
one of the
so
things they
much.
throw. They throw at my face and I'm like, but I kept you safe. So you could get mad at me all through your life. I kept you safe.
Yes,
And that was my intention.
yes.
And I also worked a lot to make sure they didn't go without. And so I know I missed a couple, so I focus on quality. So I'm just literally having a conversation with my adult daughter right now because I wish we had a closer relationship because I
And it
have.
will get closer as you evolve in life and she evolves in life. My daughter is 42 years old. She's a grown woman now, right? And I forget that sometimes because I want to go and protect her. As my mom was going through her death, because my daughter's an RN, everybody was leaning on her with, what does it say when the doctor told us this at the appointment? Or, what does this mean? And I was getting into mama bear, like, she's busy. She's got 3 kids. She's got her husband. She's got her job. And my daughter said, Mom, I can take care of myself. And I was like, you know what, Majita, you are right. I have raised you to be an independent, strong woman. You can take care of yourself. Thank you for the reminder that you're not la niña chiquita de 8 años que tengo que cuidar. Gracias, mi amor.
And I think we forget that
Yeah, we do.
with my
We do.
daughter, raised them to be a little different because I was raised in a machista environment. So I make sure my son, you've met my son, and he would be the first one
Yes.
to tell you he's a feminist. 'Cause he's around women. He's around strong women. And my daughter, I said, I want you to be a 2.0 version of me. So your tenacity and don't take shit from nobody and be independent. So sometimes when I feel like she gives a little bit too much of that power, I'm like, I try to reel her back. I was like, you need to be there. So I think I expect a little bit more from her because I try to encourage her to be completely independent from how I was raised. I was raised
Yes.
to be like the domestic, docile wife. That's what my mom was like training me to be. And I'm like, "Psst, the opposite of that. So I want her to be even stronger. So because I push, I think sometimes she pushes back. And so, and not by intent, it's just like I want the best of her. She has all
Yes.
the best qualities of me, and so, and I think maybe how I project some of that is not being perceived the way I wish
Yeah, it's
she would
perceived as
perceive it.
control.
Yeah, and it's not.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
am,
we know that, but that's the reality of the dynamic between the adult and the adult child and the parent, right? Is we see it as control when the reality is it's coming from a noble place. And so, I mean, here I am an HR practitioner with all of these years of experience, and as my children were getting ready to start their careers, like I was like, I mean, they could have utilized my skills, right? My proven skills. But I learned that sometimes it is best for advice and guidance to come from someone else because just the fact that I'm their mother, it impacts the way the message is received, right? At least that was my dynamic. And so I've learned that I got to let them, let them let me, let them let me.
it's funny that you said that because we're both HR expert. Now, the one thing I do have is when they're in a bind, whether in at work or in life, they know mom she's there.
Yeah, we're always there, going to be their advocate.
I don't mess with my kids. I don't care how old they are. But I've had to have conversations where because they know I'm an HR professional and they had issues in job, they come and tell me and I say, okay, so which one do you want? I said, do you want me as your mom or do you want me to be the HR professional? I can help you on both. And so there've been times where I've had to draft an email because my son, I think, had an experience with his girlfriend wasn't getting paid and they were giving her the runaround. I said, okay, I heard them out. I said, what do you need from me? Because you get whatever you want. I can just be supportive, give you advice, and you do it. No, they're not listening to us. Okay, well, they'll listen to me when I send an email. And sure enough, the following day she got paid. And so they know when they need mom is there, right? And so, but I've also been teaching them to fight their own battles, and they can, but they also are aware that mom, no matter what, she's there no matter what, right? But one of the things I love the fact when I'm having a conversation with you and I have a conversation with other hermanas who already have more adult kids, it gives me hopes that, okay, this is going to pass. And I'm waiting for that
Yes.
where her and I could be like, let's go get mani pedis. And we're like, in that little sister or, in relationship, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But you guys are giving me hope. So
Yes.
part of what I
Yes.
love the community that we have is all of us have different parts in our life where we are experienced and we lean on each other for advice and we get it, right? I lean on you for you're sharing with your daughter. I lean on you for HR professional advice. Sometimes I'm leaning, hey, I'm going through this and you give me some really good input and I didn't have that for many years until I joined the organization where I feel like we have esta comunidad that we help each other, no questions asked. And I'm trying to kind of encourage the girls to build on that because sometimes our support system is not always at home. Sometimes our
Right.
support system could be from the community that we're building. And I'm just so grateful that I have a community of hermanas that have their own special skill, their special talent, that we lean on each other for whatever that may be, and that's what we have in common, right, with our
Yes.
community here. So I love that. Now, as a grandma, because you have grandkids too,
I
how is that
do.
role?
That is wonderful. So again, when you struggle with shame, when I was raising my own children, we'll just focus on the girls, like everything had to match. Everything had to be perfect. Their bows had to match, their dress had to match, their calcetines had to match, their chons, like everything had to be perfect. My house had to be perfect. Like I just struggled with perfectionism, the need to please, presenting, trying not for people to figure out that I was a teen mom. Like I live that way. Where as a grandma, like it's all about the moment. It's all about this here and the now. And so when my little granddaughter was like, I want 6 braids. Sure. We're going to go out in town with 6 braids. So it wasn't so, and I'm not so stressed about like the house has to be immaculate and all of the things that I was so caught up in when I was raising my own children because, I was working full time with HR as a demanding job, 3 children. It was very, very difficult, and I killed myself to do all that stuff. And now I'm like, if the house is messy, the house is messy. I'll clean it up after they go. But I try to stay present. They are absolutely the joy of my life. When people, when my friends that started having they started becoming grandparents and I would see them, I'd be like, es como ella, ay, se pasa, man, se pasa. Like I was like, because my kids were in their early 20s or whatever. So I didn't see myself to be that kind of grandma. But I'm telling you, Maria, when my daughter was pregnant, I could start feeling the connection. And as you know, we carry our grandchildren inside of us, right? Because, the eggs that we have is the eggs that our daughters have. And so when I held my grandbaby for the first time, the amount, I almost felt like it was 1983 again, and I had just had my baby, except I didn't have any pain. So, because I did have 3 kids with no drugs. So that, was another story. But anyhow, that connection, it was like all over again. But it was more than that because it was also when I handed the baby to my daughter to see her joy of her daughter. I mean, there is nothing more beautiful than that, than to see your daughter have a daughter and to hold her and to love her. I just feel I feel incredibly blessed to be a nani. In our culture, we call them nana, but my mom was alive when my grandchildren were born. So my mom was nana and I'm nani. And so anyhow, yes, it has been the absolute joy. I feel like I'm a better grandparent than I was a parent. I've done a lot of work on myself. I spent thousands of dollars on therapy. So yeah, so I better be, right? All that money, I better be. So I feel like I'm a much better grandparent than I was. And I'm happier in my life than I was at that time because I'm not struggling with all of the shame and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's the best, Maria. I wish that blessing upon you. So
No time soon. Thank you.
no time soon. No time soon. Yeah, I don't think my grandchild was born till my daughter was 30. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, plenty of
No,
time.
my son is 31, but he doesn't want any kids. He says the world is not where it needs to be to bring more humans in this world. So I'm like, I'm okay with fur babies.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
absolutely.
So, and then my daughter eventually, I think she will, but she's focused in school. So there's no rush. Okay. So, one of the things that I share with my kids is like when we are trying to raise our kids, we're not always showing up the best because all the pressures that we have, right? Now that you don't have that, I know you recently retired and you're enjoying life to your fullest because you just took a trip. Tell us about the trip that you just went to and how was
Yeah,
that?
so my husband and I went to Greece. We did 2 weeks in Greece. It was wonderful. The first week was a yoga retreat. And, my husband's a Marine, so Marines are up for anything. They're team players. They will do hard things. They are not afraid. And so even though my husband doesn't do yoga, by the end of the retreat, he was standing on his head. So, yeah. So I'm very thankful that I have a husband that is willing to do stuff that's difficult and that he supports me in ways that are more than just verbal, actually hands-on. So he was outside his comfort zone, and I'm super grateful that I have that from him. So we did that the first week. And then the second week was all about relaxation. We met some of our really close friends. So their first week we were in Amorgos, and then the second week we went to Crete. And so we met some of our very good friends and Julie in Amorgos, and we just toured the island, had a wonderful time, very relaxing, and then came back to reality. So yeah, retirement has provided for me the opportunity to travel. I've done a lot of traveling. And now that my husband is not working, we also can do more things together. And I feel like we're having a lot of fun. He's like my playmate. He's like my, like you have play dates. And so everywhere he goes, he wants to take me. He's like, I'm going to Home Depot. Will you come with me? I'm like, yeah, no, thank you. Not interested. But like we still do a lot of fun things together. We go for walks. It's fun. I can't explain it because we don't have the difficulties of raising children together and that kind of thing. So I'm very thankful for this time in my life, this season in my life.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm still waiting for the pictures, right? I've been to Greece and I need to go back. I literally shed a tear when I left because I fell in love with Greece and I was in Athens. We did a lot more local, but I still need to go and explore more because it's beautiful. There's so much history, the
Yes,
food, the
it's
people.
incredible.
Everything is just beautiful. I've been to different places in Europe, but Greece by far is my favorite. Did you make it to Athens? That's not the
So
first time you've been there.
this is my second time going to Greece. Previously, I'd been to Mykonos and Santorini and Athens. So went to Athens, and then from Athens, we went to Santorini, Mykonos. So this time started off in Athens, and then we took a boat to Amorgos. Amorgos is a very small island, only 2,000 residents on island. Wonderful. So it's talk about peace and quiet and ability to reconnect to nature. Just wonderful. And then Crete is the largest of the Greek island. I think Greece has over 200 islands. So Crete is the largest one. And so beautiful. They've got snow, beautiful coastline. I really enjoyed Crete. I wish we could have stayed longer, but you got to get back home. So, but yeah, I would
Reality, right?
recommend if you do go, definitely take 2 weeks. I feel like if you go to Europe, it takes over a day to get there. You really need to stay a full 2 weeks to really get immersed in the culture and immersed to wherever it is you're traveling or you're visiting. But I do enjoy traveling. In my career, I traveled all over the world between my Navy and Marine Corps positions. But when you go for work to travel, it's not the same. You're there, you're hustling, you're preparing for the next day, you're meeting with clients, you're socializing, schmoozing, that kind of thing. And so it's like you're up, up, up. But when you go for vacation, you're really able to just enjoy and not have to be at the top of your game like when I was traveling for work. So much different experience traveling now as a retiree versus when I was working.
I absolutely agree with you. I go through when I went to Greece, there's tours that they take. We planned a lot of different excursions. I went with one of my girlfriends and it was really fun. What really impressed me was a lot of the places had marble floors
Yes.
as the norm.
Yes.
So if you go to like the market, I'm like, why they have an abundance of marble because the floors are already like all marbled out. And it's just beautiful. I can't wait to go back. Yeah, it's great. So when is the next trip for you now that you came back?
Oh, we are going to Mexico later in the year. We have that. We're actually taking our grandkids on a trip to see the Nixon and Reagan Library. So we're going to do Camp Nani. That's Camp Grandma for a week. So we are going to do some stuff with them. We're enjoying that. And we're going to go to Cabo. And we're going to go up to Seattle to see our friends Mike and Amy that we traveled to Italy with last year. So yeah, we got some travel plans coming in. My husband he's a homebody, so he's not as travel oriented as I am. But yeah, so there'll always be things that'll pop up.
Yeah. And so one of the trips also that you're gonna put in there is Palm Springs. Just put that
Yes,
in there. You and I are going to Palm
I'm
Springs.
visualizing that.
We are, because I told you from a few months ago we're either gonna go to the spa in here, but then I'm like, you know what? I love Palm Springs. There's a spa that
Vámonos.
we can go and just chill by the pool, read, and just have a girls' day. I will let you know, pack your bags, come here, and then from here we go to Palm Springs and spend the weekend over there, girls' trip. So just put that in your trip for this year.
Sounds good.
So now that you're retired, you're traveling. Anything else besides the travel that you're doing? I know that you're the co-chair for LSLP. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that.
So, Maria, so even though like Latinas have made a remarkable educational gains in California, again, like I mentioned, we no longer have the highest dropout rates. And we actually now outperform Latino men in both high school completion and college attainment. Yet we remain underrepresented among those earning bachelor's and advanced degrees compared to Asian and white men and women. And so Mana de San Diego, our Hermanitas program, which is a flagship program, goal is to get them into college. And then we have our Tias program, which is intended to get them through college. My work is after college and while you're in your career, because the reality is that yet despite our strong improvement in educational attainment and our high ambition, do you know that Latinas hold less than 1% of the C-suite positions in corporate America? Making us the least represented demographic group at the highest levels of leadership. Latinas remains significantly underrepresented in executive leadership positions across San Diego County. I mean, there's a lot of well-educated Latinas in San Diego County, but yet we're still not represented at the numbers that we should be. So this disconnect between educational achievement and leadership advancement highlights the persistent structural barriers that limit the full utilization of Latina talent. So that's where the leadership programs come in. We have the two primary programs, which is the Latina Leadership Success Program, which they renamed, but that is focused on those that are in leadership position, getting you to the next level, getting you to work on the skills that you need to have. And it is supported by data because I have the fabulous Doctora Cristina Padilla. Talk about my homegirl. Shout out for my homegirl. So we've got the data that shows, what are the things that get in the way of us moving into those levels. And so we have that very focused alumni program or the leadership program. And so we've got, I think this is going to be our 10th cohort this year. And we partner with the Center for Creative Leadership on that program. So it's very competitive to get in. And we will be launching that the first week of June. So that's coming up. And then we have our conference. It's done every other year. And so that conference, again, it's intended for those that are already working in their career, helping them move to those positions of leadership. Because here's what we know for sure. We know that in order to make influence, you got to have a seat at the table. You've got to be part of the leadership positions. I remember when I was coming up in my career, there was like, I don't know if I want to be a supervisor. And I remember my supervisor coming to me and saying, you need to be willing to step into supervisory positions because that's the only way that you can create influence. Really, like when I say influence, I mean influence at a higher and a strategic level. So I'm continuing to work on that, still have that I'm working on.
Yeah, I'm excited. We had Dr. Cristina Padilla on our last episode, which she's amazing.
She
She's
is.
very influential. She inspired me because she was part of the instructors for my cohort, and I'm class of 2022. Proud, and I know that you guys are growing a little bit more. I think you guys adding an extra section to the program, which is great, and it's important because we don't have that. And one of the things I want to focus and give credit because of things that the chapter is doing. Just because we are in a career or position of leadership doesn't mean we stop learning. And that's why
That's it.
we need to continue investing in ourselves. We need mentors. In this platform, we've showcased a lot of Latina executive coaches like Dr. Inez, Dr. Cristina. We have, a lot of executive coaches that are focusing on mentoring Latinas in their fields.
Yeah, and that's an issue that has come up. We just had our leadership offsite. And so while, the things that I'm working on, while my continue healing, because again, you're never done, just like being a leader. You never arrive. Being a leader is a journey. Leadership is a journey. You're always evolving, you're always changing, you're always learning, you're always growing. And so anyway, my healing will continue with my self-care, eating well, exercising, having fun, traveling with Jerry. But, my work with Mana will continue. We've identified the need for mentors. And so I'm going to be developing a prototype for a mentor match program, so we can have people that are like me that we've gone through it, we're ready to been mentored, and it's time for us to now give back and mentor others, and then those that need to be mentored. So I'm going to be working on that. I have a lot of experience that from working in the Navy, so we've got that. And then also one of the other things that we're doing is we're soliciting membership is cut for the board. So it's time to solicit for board. So I'm on the subcommittee that is putting together the slate for the board. Being a board member for Mana is extremely important. And again, my experience with candidate evaluation, candidate interview, all of that, understanding what management's needs are, what the organization needs, and then matching those with potential candidates is something that I'm skilled in. So I'll be working on that. So it's a very exciting. We have our conference on the 6th and 7th of November. So the 6th will be an evening event, primarily showcasing awards. And then the 7th will be the all-day event where we'll have the breakout sessions. But yeah, I'm excited to see how I can put together something for Mana leadership to consider for a mentor match program. And I hope I can count on you to both, because you can always, I feel like even when I was at the senior executive level, there were still executives that I would reach out to for mentorship, because again, you never arrive when you're a leader. And if you think you've arrived, you better check your ego, man, because you haven't. There's always going to be a need for you to reach out to someone to walk you through something, to give you some good counsel, some seasoned advice and guidance and that kind of thing. So hopefully I can count on you to be both a mentor and a mentee.
I'm on board on anything that you need from me. So anything that you need, I'm there. We have a lot of things that are happening through the organization, our chapter, and because we have all these incredible Latina leaders, they're all expanding in different other nonprofits.
Yeah,
which is great, right?
it
And I
is.
love showcasing that because that's how people are aware that we have all this community accessible to them, to support them so they don't feel that they're alone. Because this platform for me is a labor of love, connecting all these incredible women that I'm so blessed to know and have them share their stories, and people can relate to them and say, oh, I know I can reach out to them. They can reach out to you. You can find Aixa in Lincoln.
Yes.
She's also through Mana de San Diego. So if you need advice, you can
Yes.
connect with her and follow her. So you're going to get to see a lot more of her. And like Dr. Cristina was mentioning, our alumni for just the LSLP, we have over 350 alumni and growing.
Yes.
I wish we had this program in other chapters because, we don't give up on the hermanitas just because they graduate college.
That's it. Yeah,
We're still
I mean, we're
growing.
still significantly underrepresented in those senior positions. That is a fact. And it's a fact that we have to address within our own community. What is it? What is it? The calladita te ves más bonita? Because that's how I was raised. Calladita te ves más bonita, like find your voice, find your power. So yeah, so there's a lot of things that are culturally that we need to be aware of so that we can make the modifications that we need to make so that we can be of value to the organizations that we support, whether it's our nonprofits or our employer, because we want to bring our best selves. We have untapped talent. So yeah, so I'm excited to be able to, especially the conference. It's at the University of San Diego. It's a beautiful campus. It's going to be at the Kroc Center, the Kroc School. So super excited. I'm hoping that you can come. Employers
I'll
are
be there.
able to pay because it is continuous learning. So hopefully you can come and invite others to attend. Anybody who is interested um, in developing themselves, getting themselves ready to get to the next level should be attending that conference. It's all about the work you do. It really is. Like you have to do the work yourself to understand what you need to change, modify, where you need to grow, what are your challenges to get you there. And then we as a community have to motivate you to try and not give up.
But the important thing too is showing us those examples, right? Because some of the
Yes.
girls, where they're in the community, may not have those visual aids. We have some episodes where hermanitas don't don't get out, that they don't really leave the zip code they're in,
Yes.
right? Where some of us are maybe a little bit more fortunate that have traveled, but some other girls in our programs, they don't go anywhere because they heart neighborhoods or the circumstances in their family, right? But when you create this visual aids and they can relate, she looks like me, I can be like her. And so we're changing that visuals for them where it becomes a possibility, right? So when we create those leaders like yourself, like the ones that are coming across this platform, the girls can say, wow, I can do that too,
Yes.
that and more. And when you have the right mentor and we tell them, yeah, you can, what do you need? You have this community, you have the support system in place, then the possibilities for them are endless. Possibilities that you and I didn't have at their age. Because I know I
Right.
didn't have none of that,
Nope.
you know? So that's what we had to work twice as hard because we had no one there supporting us. I didn't know what a mentor was. So those are the things that we're doing with the organization. I'm really loving it. So tell the audience what motivates you. And
So, I am a patriot. I love this nation, the opportunity that this nation gave to my family. And every time I go back to Colombia and I visit with my cousins and relatives, it is brought to my attention just how fortunate I was that my parents took a chance and came to this beautiful country that I love. And I did spend 37 years of my life supporting our great Navy and Marine Corps team. And so even though I've stepped away, I still think the thing that motivates me is to be able to remind my children, my grandchildren, of where they came. ¿De dónde vienes? ¿Cuáles son tus raíces? Helping others in their leadership journey, because I think that's where my strength has been. Seeing them become self aware and honestly seeing them heal. Mentoring and giving back is a big part of what motivates me because, like you, I didn't have those opportunities. And rather than be a victim because of it, I've decided to be a catalyst for change for the next generation and not just for my own children, but for all children. So whether you're Latina or not Latina, there is the ability to heal. And so it motivates me to know that if I can be a blessing in that journey, that I want to do it.
And you are. You definitely are. You are a blessing to me. So I value our friendship. Thank you for that. And another note, since you're from Colombia, I haven't been to Colombia. So whenever you want to travel and need a travel buddy and maybe give Jerry a break, let me know. I'll sign up and then I'll go with you to Colombia because that's in my
Colombia is
bucket list.
beautiful. It's got the most microclimates in all of South America. It's a beautiful country, beautiful culture, but very similar. I feel like the Latino countries that I've traveled to, very similar countries. But yes, okay, mijita, ándale, vámonos.
Vamos, vamos. And then we'll step at Carol G's restaurant,
Yeah,
and
there
I
you go. One of my closest friends, when she was getting married for her bachelorette party, we went to Colombia for a week. So it was like, we're too old to do Vegas. Let's do what we really like. Let's travel. So we went to Cartagena, Bogota, Medellin. It was a wonderful trip. So yeah, okay, vamos.
let's go. You'll give me the grand tour from a
Yes.
Colombian perspective. So I'm there. Sign me up. So awesome. So, well, looking back and all the experience that you have, if you have to share some words of wisdom, Aisa's words of wisdom, what would those be?
You know, I think today I understand that honestly, my greatest accomplishments were not all the different titles that I held or the positions that I had or the professional recognition that I had. My greatest accomplishments have been in healing and shaping my journey and giving hope to others, to those people that step into leadership roles that are significantly introverted, that have difficult times just in people relationships. Healing has meant strengthening my faith in Christ. It's been receiving the professional help that I needed, facing my past, learning to forgive, and understanding that my worth is not tied to my production levels. So, words of wisdom is I think that my success now is in self awareness, in creating space where people can tell me those uncomfortable truths, at least the ones that want a relationship with me moving forward, right? It's being in healthy relationships, being able to forgive and to be in peace. I think it's also what we talked about is breaking those generational cycles. It's in helping others. It's to remind people that your past doesn't determine your future because my story is a story of childhood trauma, of abuse, sexual and physical abuse, but it's also one of faith, of forgiveness and transformation. And that I share it and I want to share it because I'm no longer ashamed. And because, especially Latinas, we live a lot in shame and we carry invisible wounds. I do think that it's important to know that healing is possible and that your childhood might shape you, but it doesn't define you. And with faith, with putting God in your life, with professional help, with self reflection, with forgiveness, it is possible to reclaim the life that God has for you, to discover your true worth, your true value, and to live a life that's filled with purpose, with joy, with peace, and with ganas. So yeah, those are my words of wisdom.
They're great. And one of the things I shared in a couple of episodes, because this platform was created out of something that I'm been dealing with, right? But I've been telling God for a while already, align me with my purpose and align me with people that align with my purpose.
Yes.
And I've been having those conversations because God comes out in the conversation with every guest. So I don't believe in coincidence. I do believe that God has a purpose for us. And when I've shared with a couple of guests, I've had really traumatic experience. Not doesn't take away from like I have some a little trauma, doesn't compare to some of the trauma that some others in my guests have lived. But what I share with them, God allows us to go through that because whatever we went through, we're using that experience to be a better version of ourselves to help others. So God is using us as the vehicles to help create and help heal others, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
Through your own journey, you're mentoring and helping other women's and I'm sure you help more than just women, right?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. But you discover that with what you're doing and like LSLP and with me, you've been a great mentor, you've been a great friend. You using that experience to help heal others, right? So I think that's our purpose. We all have one. And then it's no coincidence where he's gathering all of us together in this platform of the Inner Niña journey because he's putting us together and we're all guerreras because we're like a little tribe of warriors creating opportunities for others to heal and to grow, right? Because all of us can relate. And as other people are hearing us, they're also going to be able to focus on healing themselves as well, right? So I think all is intentional. And I also give him glory to him because he's made all this possible. And you know my story because she's one of the first persons I called when I was beginning the walk of life that he was putting me through in my direction and my purpose. And I'm glad that she picked up the phone and she was able to guide me. And you were a person of comfort. I appreciate you and value you so much because you were there. You still are. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You were the first phone call I made. And I'll be forever grateful. So you know that. And I have to give her credits and give her the flowers that she deserves because there's some people that you may sometimes call they might be too busy. When I reach out to her, she's never busy. She was reaching out to me when she was in Greece. She's like, I got something from you.
I do. I have a little gift for
um,
you.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I love you for it. So I just want to judge, I love you so much. I value our relationship, and I'm so beyond grateful that you're part of that journey with me. And one of the things I share that the next chapter that God has me going into, a lot of the people that I thought were friends have fallen off, but God has reminded me that sometimes the journey that He's taking you in, not everybody's meant to go with you, because He's introducing you to new people that are aligned with your purpose. And so those that are staying with you are meant to go with you in the next journey. So I just want to say that you're part of my comunidad, you're part of my journey. And I'm glad we have a lot of that similar common ground, which is God and in our journey. So anyways, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love you for that.
I love you too,
And you're an
Maria.
incredible
Gracias a
person.
ti.
So the last question I ask all my guests, because the inner Niña is insisted with the journey that I'm in, is no matter where we at in life, the shell, the beautiful shell that we look like now, there's a little one inside that is healing and driving and the purpose behind everything that we do today, right? I give credit to where I'm at, the better person or the version I am right now. I was telling Adriana in our episode that be patient with me and be kind to me when you see that crazy little Maria in all the Mana events. Is that little Maria inside of me that's trying to fulfill all the longing, all the things that I didn't get a chance to do. Sorry.
Rather than sit in all we missed, we've decided, and this is you and me and many others, we've decided to be a blessing to others and turn that pain into triumph. That has been our choice. We are not victims. We are conquerors through Christ Jesus and all that He's done for us.
Amen.
And
So
so
part
we
of
are more
that
than
is
conquerors. And so we want to be a blessing to others, and we want to avoid the pain that we felt for the next generation, and not just of Latinas, but all of humanity, right? Because opportunities pass our way, not just in the Latina community, but in every community, right? There's always an opportunity to speak love and kindness to others.
exactly. So I always give them grace because I'm very overprotective. And those that know me, I'm very protective of people around me. I want to be the loudest cheerleader. I want to be the one that opens the door. I'm going to crack the doors wide open. I want to do the things for others that I always say no one had the opportunity to do for me. But
That's it.
I know that was God's plan because what we endured, he wouldn't allow us to endure if He knew that we couldn't handle it, right? So all this is part of that process. And I tell my mom, because my mom is also, are big in faith. So I have to watch what I say, how I want God to give me the stuff, because He does listen and delivers. He doesn't always give to me when I need it or
That's it.
how I want it, but He
Yes.
gives it to me. And then I'm like, wait, I didn't want it that way. But it does. So the opportunities are coming and the blessings are coming. So I always say a lot of what I do is not this person here, but the little one inside. Say, let's do it. Let's go for it. And so she's pushing me along to do a lot of stuff. And so in some of the ways I said, I always say, give me grace. I may drive people crazy around me, but it's the good intention that the little girl it's like she's been held for so long that she now finds the freedom because I'm listening to her. And I'm like, whatever you need, let me get that for you. Anyways, I didn't mean to be this crying episode today. So by the way, so
It's all
just,
good. It's authentic. It's authentic.
yeah, but I mean, I'm loving the journey that I'm in right now because this wouldn't have happened. The hardship that whatever I was meant to go through allowed me to create this platform, and the beautiful people that I am meeting, sharing their stories and giving God's grace for getting them out of that dark part that they were in, whether they're in children or where they went through as adults. And I wouldn't have been able to meet half of the women that I've been meeting through this platform had not have been for where I was at that moment. And you know what I'm talking about. So all this is on purpose.
That's it.
So anyways, so that's where I'm at. But if you had a chance to go back to talk to your little Aixa, that beautiful, I'm looking at your little picture, by the way, on the side right here. So beautiful, with beautiful smile. If you had a chance to go and talk to that beautiful little girl, what would you tell her?
So, I think about when I was going through some really significant abuse. I was only 4 years old, just a baby, right? So, and yo no hablaba inglés. So I'm going to have to, for your viewers that don't speak Spanish, I'm not sure how you do it. You can always put a chat in there. I translate it for you, but I'd have to say it in Spanish because that's all I understood. So I would tell mi querida Isita que nada de lo que te está pasando es tu culpa, mi amor. Nada. No mereces que te traten de esta manera. Eres profundamente amada de Dios y tienes valor. Una hermosa hijita de Dios. Y tienes que saber que Dios te tiene en la palma de su mano. Eres fuerte, eres valiente y vas a salir, todo va a salir bien. Siga buscando a Cristo en tu corazón y todo saldrá bien, mi amor. That's what I would tell her. Because that she would
Amen.
understand. If I said it in English, she'd be like, ¿qué?
¿Qué? ¿Qué? Yeah.
¿Qué?
I'm glad that you said that. That little girl, and I'm looking to the side because she sent me some pictures. She's right here. Beautiful little girl. She's a gift from God. And I always been telling some of the guests that we share those stories. Even when we felt alone at that moment that we were going through some trauma, we weren't alone. God was with us. But it was part of our journey. And I always share with some of the guests that I do believe that some of us are chosen to carry a little bit more of the burden that typically others don't get a chance to carry because he knows that we can take it. And through us being part of that process, we also are being the visual, or the people can see, wow, she went through that. That
Yeah, I
means,
mean, the reality is that diamonds are made through pressure, right? Gold is refined through heat. And so those things that you and I have walked through have refined us and has reminded us just what the power of God can do in a person's life. So yes, 40 years ago, would I have been thankful that what was happening to me then was happening? Of course not. But now I look back and I think, thank you, Lord, because through it all, you were with me through it all. And because of that, I am more compelled to do for others. So
amen.
glory
And I
be to
think
God.
And I think that's the intent, right? If you go and look at all the guests that we've had, we all are living our purpose,
Yes.
and through the purpose through Christ. And I do believe that. So there's a journey. And I do tell the girls that I mentor, my girls, and also my son, my blood son, that not to get too comfortable, because in our life, it's all about ups and downs. And God is going to give the blessings, but there's going to be times where we have to learn a new lesson. And the lessons that are not always just for us to learn,
Yeah.
but because we have people around that are looking at us and how we survive and how we show up, right? That gives them the courage for them to be able to withstand whatever challenges it goes their way.
That's it. And
But what I
growth
tell the
occurs
girls
in
too,
discomfort. That's
yeah,
where growth occurs, is in discomfort.
in discomfort that we grow. And I always tell them, I said, but unlike other things, when you're at your lowest point, you're not alone because you're part of this community. So I want them to feel like they can reach out. And that's one of the things I want to continue to emphasize. Be part of a community that's going to be there no matter what. Not just a social media post, but be there available when we go through our tough moments. I know I can call someone and they can help me out, or just listen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's important for us. So I want to say thank you, Manita, for taking the time to meet with me. And I'm glad that you were able to
De nada,
spend
mi
some
amor, de
time.
nada.
Hey, te quiero un chingo.
Te
Te quiero
quiero
un chingo.
mucho.
I love you. So I want to say thank you for sharing her journey. I want to continue the conversation because we're going to go to Palm Springs the next couple of months, and
Claro
I'll
que
know a
sí.
little bit more soon. We're like,
Vámonos.
and then Colombia, because I know she'll take me to
Vámonos.
Colombia. So I want to say thank you for sharing your time today and your story. I want to say thank you to our listeners for listening and holding space for me. I am Maria Benitez, and this is our journey together. Until next time. Thank you. Te adoro. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for me. And thank you for allowing me to walk beside you as you heal your inner Niña. Until next time, please don't forget to follow and subscribe.